Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Jonnita Stanton. We have Reginald Perryman, Kashka Williams, and we are TSARE. This is the There's Something About Real Estate podcast where we discuss all things real estate. And today we have a special guest with us, Natalie Reed, OP of a few Keller Williams in the area.
The OP, the OG OP.
Yeah. So, Natalie, you want to join in here and introduce yourself?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. This is so fun. I'm looking forward to spending time with you guys as always. But KW, the Woodward Corridor. It's
Right.
I've been a part of it for almost 20 years now, which is mind-blowing to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started my real estate career with Keller Williams, actually.
Okay.
So, back in 2001.
Wow. So that was before the crash and you survived through that.
Oh,
and
when
everything.
I started, Reggie,
Right.
it was, you put the sign in the ground. If it wasn't sold in 2 days, you were like, oh my gosh, what happened? I priced it wrong.
Right.
Kind of similar
Right
to what
now.
we're living right now.
Right.
It's deja vu. It's full circle.
Right.
So,
That's funny.
but I did live through the crash,
Right.
and it's learned a ton through that, and
Right.
I'm excited to be able to bring that to our teams and our offices as we have an impending shift at some point. I think we're all starting to feel it a bit. So,
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit, how did you get started in real estate?
yeah, so I actually spent almost 10 years in the corporate world. I ran a national sales team for a marketing firm, started out in Chicago, and got promoted back to Troy, Michigan. I was a manufacturer's rep, and because Kmart headquarters was here, ended up back in Michigan, which is actually home to me. So I was excited to move home and have the opportunity to purchase my first house and have a garage. That's a huge luxury after moving from the city.
Right.
I had moved to Chicago right out of college with $100 in my pocket. And so
Wow.
it's funny to think about. My parents dropped me off. Cell phones didn't exist.
Right.
They left me in this
Wow.
big city, and I covered 3 states, and I had the big Atlas road map, and I somehow figured out where to go. And now my kids can't get to their school without, MapQuest on their phone. So
Right. That's funny.
it's really crazy. So I had done that for 10 years, and I learned a lot about leadership.
Okay.
It was heavy leadership training, sales training, and then when I moved back, I started buying rental properties. It just so happened I had purchased my first home, got 3 roommates. I was living in Royal Oak, and it was my early 20s, and got some roommates,
Right.
and they were paying my mortgage. I'm like, oh my goodness. The bathroom's a bit cozy, and my mortgage is paid for. I'm going to go buy another house.
Oh.
So I had a great mentor at where I worked in my previous career at Crossmark. And so my mentor kind of walked me through having tenants,
Right.
and never grew up anything business related or real estate. My dad he's an engineer. My mom's a retired school teacher, so no business whatsoever. They thought I was crazy. What? First, you're buying a house in Royal Oak. Are you kidding? And then secondly, you're going to have roommates and tenants. So anyway, I continued to purchase additional properties and built up to a few and started flipping a few houses, and ultimately turned my hobby into a full-time career and haven't looked back.
Cool. So you mentioned so you're the OP at 2 offices in Royal Oak and Birmingham.
Yes.
Before you answer that, what is an OP?
Okay, great question. We do have our own language. Every company does. It's part of the culture, right? So OP stands for operating partner, and every KW office has someone who was placed as an OP to gather the talent to launch a market center. That's during a launching phase.
Okay.
And then when offices are up and running, it is the job of the OP to hire, train, and hold a team leader accountable to run the day-to-day operations. So if you liken it to a large corporation, take a Google. They have a board of directors, and they have a chairman of the board. That's somewhat how an OP operates.
Okay.
And then they are responsible for hiring the CEO that really runs the organization.
Right.
So the investors of a market center are like board members, and then you have the OP that leads that investor group,
Right.
and then we have team leaders that run the day-to-day operations and are responsible for hiring their teams to run the offices. So the question Jonnita had was the two offices. There's the Birmingham Market Center, which also expanded into Bloomfield. I'm going north and working my way south. It's just how my brain works. And then we have the Royal Oak Market Center, which is KW Metro. And we have most recently launched a business center to KW Metro, which is called KW City.
Cool.
So down in Detroit. Right at Kirby and Woodward. So come see us.
Cool. So the way you were explaining it, because I don't think a lot of brokerages understand, they probably do from the franchise level, but the individual offices, a lot of them are not set up with that like corporate structure pretty much. So you have your OP, you have, because you kind of named everybody except the broker, right? So within that structure, you have a managing broker, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's a great question, Reggie.
Right.
Just because so many people in the world of real estate, you hear of the broker owner, and they wear multiple hats. They're overseeing the transactions. They're hiring associates. They're handling issues that come, every day. And our offices, because we're a capping model, we're designed to be a large office so we can provide all the services that we do. And we do have a managing broker for each location. And so really they work hand in hand with the OP, the team leader. It's almost like we have this triangle. And they handle the issues that come across, and they're in charge of education as far as the legal aspect of everything.
Cool.
In terms of camaraderie, do you feel like the entire brand, the KW brand, maybe has a high level of camaraderie due to the structure, like the organizational structure?
Well, I think the answer is yes, and I left out the most critical piece that is the glue to all of that between the associates and the staff in the office. And that's our Agent Leadership Council. Something completely unique in our industry is that we have a group of individuals that represent the voice of the agents in our office, and it's the Agent Leadership Council. And that group gets together once a month, and we talk about policies and guidelines within the office. We talk about different initiatives and needs and wants. We have different committees within that council. And that really is the heart of the office, and really what drives us as to how we operate and different pivots that we make as a leadership team, getting feedback from the office, and they're involved in the decisions. We are a servant leadership. We are here for our associates, and that's the platform that we use to get feedback.
Cool.
You're part of it, right?
Yeah. So one of the things, so a lot of times when we're comparing, because agents always ask, why should I go to a franchise company versus a independent, small boutique type brokerage? So there's a little bit more risk with being just an individual broker because you're wearing so many hats. You're managing the agents, you're cutting the checks, you're holding the EMDs. You don't have like the accounting department. Everything is separate. So it's probably more efficient to run it that way with the structure like KW has.
Yeah, I think the advantage is having a team as large as we do, that if we're replacing someone or there's an opportunity and we grow and we need to add an additional person to the team, there are many hands make for light work. So I think when there's a shift with the team, it's easier to manage when there's one person. When you're a broker owner wearing all the hats, if you're out sick, the show stops. So
scalability, able to scale.
Yeah, and we cross-train. So everybody, if something happens, oh my goodness, I mean, what we just went through in the past 2 years, I have to tell you, there were days I was working the front desk, and wow, what a blast. I actually was excited. I knew how to transfer a phone call, but those are the things you do. And So I think that part is really helpful with having a large team, and it allows each team member to really become an expert in their craft,
Right.
and really bring the best service for our associates. And the reality is, with offices that are as large as ours are,
Right.
not everybody is going to vibe with every single individual.
Right.
When you have that whole variety of personalities, it allows people to really have a closer connection, possibly. Maybe there's someone that they vibe with better than someone else.
Cool.
I want to talk a little bit about success in the industry, because you are a broker, and then you've been in business since '01, and it's 2022, and so we've been through several different, transitions with like 4 at this point. Well, we're coming into a 4th.
Shifts.
Yeah. Like, can you explain success and sustainability? Like, maybe from like each point, like some key points or things that you feel like are important to stay afloat?
Yeah, some of the phases that we've lived through. I would say first and foremost is be fungible. Be ready to, Gary Keller teaches us, always operate in the market that you're moving into, not that the one that you're in.
Right.
So I think a huge piece of that is really just the awareness of where are we now and where are we heading, and get ahead of it. So I tell you what, I had my best year in 2009 because I was the first person in my office that did a short sale. We didn't even know what that meant.
Right.
I mean, and that was 2008, but by 2009, I was in my best year, because in 2008, late 08, I heard about the short sale process, and I thought, boy, I'm going to learn about this. This is an issue. And I had heard about other agents turning down listings because it was a short sale. And I'm like, wait, you're turning down a listing? Why would you? Well, you don't know if it's going to sell, or it might take too long, and you have to do all this paperwork and, work with the lenders. And so when I investigated it, I just wrapped my arms around it, and I was one of those people, oh, you didn't get my 80-page fax? I'll send it one more time. I'm not letting you off the hook. We're going to figure this out.
Right.
So a big key is being open to wanting to learn and grow and get ahead of the market. And once I had those relationships and I got in the portals and I could speak the language, I was getting listings like crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
And I thought it was awesome from the aspect, I mean, when you don't have to negotiate commissions, you walk in, this is the fee, this is what we do, you get the paperwork, and you move on your way. It was nothing to be afraid of. And we were helping people. I mean, there was so much gratification in helping people at a huge time of need.
Yeah,
So
it got to the point, because short sales, it got to the point where the banks, if they couldn't do a loan mod, they would try that first before foreclosure. Then the next step would be a short sale. And the banks, right on your application, they would ask for the MLS number.
Because you got to list
as a
it first.
realtor, it was like, what better time than be in the market when the banks are saying you have to list your property?
Yeah.
Right, to do a short sale. So, I mean, I can see why that would be a great year.
I just want to translate that a little bit. So, because back then, in order to do a short sale, you had to be in default already. You had to have listed the property and already have tried to sell it, and then you could start having those conversations.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's good.
Yeah.
So, what year did you become a owner investor in Keller Williams?
So I was with KW, oh boy, just a couple years. It was 2000. The KW Metro, which back in the day was KW Woodward, we had some DBA name changes when we moved locations off of Woodward into downtown Royal Oak.
Right.
But it was 2004, so I had been with Keller Williams 3 years, still living in Royal Oak, and I just fell in love with the model.
Right.
I couldn't get over, even that early in KW world, I mean, there were only... When I came to the company, there were about 5,000 associates. We have over 180,000 now.
Wow.
So there were 5,000 associates, and I just, the platform and the culture of collaboration and the level of learning base and how open door policy it was, that's the company that I actually came from in the corporate world, which is interesting because it's not always like that in the corporate world. I had loved that, and it's why I was only at one company prior to coming to KW.
Okay.
So I felt at home with that.
Right.
And I thought, oh my gosh, we need to have one of these in Royal Oak. Like, this is crazy. So I started getting a group together, and I wasn't the first operating partner. Pete Costa was our first operating partner, but I got it. I was the instigator.
Okay.
So we got it rolling, and we opened a market center in 2006.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
y'all
She told me the story.
Yeah.
You can't believe it. We had a
Right.
big, beautiful new build out of a space,
Right.
and the market came to a screeching halt.
You were the propeller, and how many people were looking at you like, what did you get us into?
Yeah, yeah.
So when you say you got a group together, what exactly does that mean? Like a group of investors?
Yeah,
Okay.
so a launching group of investors, what they
Right.
do is you're looking for people that are influential in the market that can
Right.
help attract other talent to
Okay.
open an office. There's a whole process to opening a KW, and the whole concept is lead with revenue. I mean, why
Right.
own a business if it's not profitable? And people
Right.
have walked before you. They've, learned from
Right.
them. And the system is really designed to
Right.
open day one and be profitable.
Okay.
And we were. And then it slowed down.
Right.
And then we were profitable again.
So how did you live through that?
Oh, we first and foremost, you cut expenses.
Yeah.
We had investors doing jobs in the office that typically are salaried positions, and everyone just rolled up their sleeves, and you do what you have to do to get through
Right.
it. So, but really, it what attracts people to Keller Williams is there's a system and a model, and we have a process for teaching people that,
Right.
and ultimately it's the level of collaboration.
Okay.
And so we were off and running. We kept growing during that time. In fact, during that last shift, KW went from being like the 8th company in the country to number 1 by the time we came out of the shift.
Wow.
So.
What do you feel like we're feeling currently as far as a shift? Like, what do you do you have any projections?
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that. I have a lot to say about that because it's fascinating. We all, we're living by the information we get off our phones and the media.
Right.
And when you look at the statistics they tell and the trends, they tell a little bit different of a story than we're hearing on a daily basis.
Right.
So I love that we're doing things like this because we need to get the message out there that there's still so much opportunity. And it's funny,
Yeah.
the little bit of, well, I'm going to say a little bit when you look at a 50-year perspective, the little bit of increases we've had in interest rate,
Right.
we still have a really strong market. It's real estate
Yeah.
is still where you want to put your money when you look historically over
Right.
time. A couple things that jump out right away are in the last bubble, because everyone's like, oh, is the
Yeah.
bubble going to burst? What's going to happen? In the last bubble, we were increasing in values and above the national, the typical trend line
Right.
of sales and appreciation for 5 years. We're actually only above our typical appreciation rates right now. We're
Right.
2 years above the trend
Okay.
line. So basically, things were kind of going out of, to simplify it, they were going out of control for 5 years.
Right.
We're only like a year and a half to 2 years out of control. So
Right.
this market and the appreciation could still be, and sales volume can still go on for another 2 to 3 years.
Right.
So the people that saw rates go up and they're freaking out, which it is a shock. I'm not going to say it's not, but their property values are going to keep going up. We're 4 million houses short and nationwide.
Right. Mhm.
So it's
Right.
still a great time to buy, and they're not going to go up at the same rate that they did over the past 18 months.
Right.
We were 20 to 30% in some markets of home appreciation
Right.
values, whereas next year or the next 12 months, it'll likely be closer to 8 or 10.
Right.
So that's what we project.
I want to talk a little bit about that. So I feel like over the last few months, we've been like, oh, it's a shortage, it's a shortage. Now, over the last, I would say like maybe 10 days, I've been, searching on the MLS and looking and seeing what's going on. And I'm seeing a lot of pickup
And inventory.
in inventory.
But it's probably the spring because of spring, summer. A lot of sellers,
Wait.
they're under the impression that this is the best time to list when it's really not always the best
But
time.
what I'm wondering is, wouldn't that be a contradiction to shortage? No matter what.
So I
Still a
think
shortage.
it feels like a shortage.
Right.
I've been saying that for a few months,
Right.
when in reality it's just been quick turnover is
Yeah.
what it's
Yep.
been. The volume is there. It just feels like.
But I guess what I'm saying is, like, a few months ago, I agree with the quick turnover, but also searching and looking, it just was not as many houses in different areas to show in certain price points or whatever. But now if you go on there, you go each area, wherever your people want to be at. It's like a lot of houses, and they are still turning over quick, but it's more. It's, like your client may say, well, I want to see these two. And you're like, oh, man, these two are getting ready to be gone. But now when you're looking at it, it's like, okay, those two might be gone. But shoot, did you see these 3 or 4?
Right that
here?
came up.
Yeah.
But it's still a
Selection,
shortage,
but it's
though.
still
short.
in some areas you went from 18 buyers per house, but now it's down to like 10 or 11. So technically it's still a shortage because they're turning over so quick. They're coming on, going off the market. So
We're going to be a few months away, and they're going to be like, I don't really think it's a shortage.
I don't think that is possible because we are. So these are facts. The
Right.
facts are we're 4 million plus short of houses. We are.
yeah,
We're in the
people are
shortage.
still paying above asking price until we cut some of that. You have to have the inventory increase, the interest rate increase, and you have to have people that say, I'm not paying more, I'm not competing. And you have to have homes sit on the market longer for it to really have a full impact. Right now, it's still flying off the shelf.
But in order for that to happen, people still you still have to have somewhere to live.
Right.
Right? So those people have to get settled somewhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't see that happening for years. I don't think that's going to happen for years.
I have heard people talking about, well, they were getting 20 offers on all their listings, and
Right.
now there's 5. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Right.
only
Because
5.
you only can sell a house to one person.
Right.
Legally, you can't.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So I got a question too. So we're talking from a broker owner standpoint. What could a broker do to kind of prepare their staff and their team for a shift? Because the brokers carry all the burden of the overhead. And how, not just from an agent perspective, but the actual broker.
Yeah. So from a brokerage standpoint, I
Right.
mean, you look at cutting costs, where
Right.
can we, okay, if you have cleaning come in 3 times a week, do you maybe look at 2 times a week?
Right.
We're getting premium coffee. Do we go to, a Costco brand? You're like, well,
Right.
no, whatever the agents want. Those are great ALC conversations. But it's fascinating when
Right.
you go over your P&L and you go over every line item, how
Right.
much sneaks in there.
Right.
And, even agents need to start doing that.
Right.
Write down, do you really need to have right now Netflix and Hulu and Paramount and
Right.
maybe, just maybe.
Jonnita.
Right. I just cut one of my credit cards off. I just said, you know what? I lost it.
Right.
But everyone gets a little fit and happy, and we were
Right.
all running so fast. You
Yep.
just didn't pay attention to some of those things, and now
Right.
might be the time. So it's really difficult to take any budget and say go slash 30%. But what I would encourage everyone to do, and we're doing this from an office perspective,
Right.
is start with 10%. Do it first. Comb over all your expenses. Can
Right.
you cut out 10%? And guess what? 60 days later, can you do it again?
Right.
And so those are things everyone should. People not even in the business should be doing that. There's no question that interest rates there's going to be an effect.
Right.
The
So those
government.
are some of the conversations that I'm hearing. So I've talked to a few of, investor friends and things like that. And the question that was posed to me just recently was like, people only have so much money. So the gas just went up. We're $4 and a quarter. The interest rates just went up to 5 and a quarter. And now the housing prices are up. And so the question becomes, well, how much money do people actually have?
Yeah.
So they're basically saying it's not sustainable.
Well, they have to buy less than what they were originally. So if you were originally going to buy a $300,000 home, now you buy one for $250,000. to adjust for all your cost of living.
Because you still have to have somewhere to live.
Exactly.
Like at the end,
Yeah.
So your house is the single most important bill that you have.
Right.
So all that other stuff, the gas, the car, you might figure out another way to get to work. You may start carpooling, but you're still going to have somewhere to live. Period.
Right.
I mean, a great point. I mean, that's the only reason why I'm in real estate. I was taught all my life that, a person is always going to need a house.
Mm-hmm.
But for a person like myself as well, I have to have my car. I will almost live out of my car before I let my, So,
Your electric car.
Right.
Your electric car.
and no, that's crazy because I literally, I drive big ass SUV, and I'm like at the light earlier, and I'm like, I gotta get a Tesla or some sort of Civic hybrid. I don't know, but something that's electric. But
Right.
I'm just wondering, like, how many of these conversations like people are actually having because the cost for a lot of people is becoming really hard. So I'm not saying that they're not going to buy the houses because they have to have some place to live. And I don't have, I hear people saying, no, not right now. This market is crazy. Okay, well, wait 20 years.
No, wait
Right.
1 year. You already waited. You're not going to be able to, if your rent is going to be way more than what it costs to
When I
own
say
a
wait
house.
20 years, I mean, it ain't changing no
right.
time
Oh,
soon.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look over the past 50 years at normal, typical home appreciation prices, they pretty much are on target for keeping
They
up
are.
with inflation
Right.
at 4% a year. So
Right.
if you wait, you are going to pay more. And
Right.
so there are other great options out there. I know those are conversations we get to have with our clients all the time. There
Right.
are arms like, who's talked about an arm in the last
years,
3 years?
right.
Like, it
just
wasn't even in your
closed
vocabulary.
A client
Right.
recently with an arm, and I was like almost like clutching my pearls, but she was okay with it. I'm like, do you understand what you just did? Because that was a lot of things that people in the industry were accused back in the day of putting people in arms and the people not understanding the arm. And she's
Right.
like, no, I understand, but
Right.
you're seeing it come back.
Yeah, it's coming back, and it's
Yeah.
coming back strong. And the other thing is, I mean, you can get 5-10 year arm. The reality is the average homeowner in America
Right.
lives there 9 years. That's the average. So even if it expires and you end up paying more at the end of that arm, chances are it'd be
Right.
interesting to run some pro formas, and most loan officers will do that for someone.
Like, no,
look, you're
tell your clients to set their alarm.
Right. Sell my house now. Call Reggie. Right.
Shameless plug.
Right.
Anyway, back to Natalie.
Quick question. So, talking about like the independent brokerages, right? And we always talk about like building a team, independent brokerage, or having a franchise company like KW. Because like the franchise, you have to pay money to KW and you still have to manage your office. So an independent broker necessarily doesn't have that overhead. But what are the benefits to being with the franchise? Is it like the support, or what is it?
Oh, there's several things. So we are seeing a trend of independent brokerages folding in with KWs.
Right.
And we have new tools in our toolkit too,
Right.
to be able to have somebody keep their identity
Right.
and operate as a mega team.
Okay.
And then be underneath the umbrella of Keller Williams.
Right.
I mean, when you think of the overhead with accountants and front desk people and that staff,
Right.
if you could be taking all that energy into production and leading your team and helping
Right.
them get more productive, you can make up for that cost
Right.
so quickly. So we are seeing a lot of times independent brokers really are what we call mega teams in our world.
Right.
So, and vice versa, within the world of KW, we have a lot of mega agents that almost operate like we call them independent brokerages, that
Right.
they may have their own coach on staff.
Right.
Now, independent brokers that merge in with us,
Right.
they should be utilizing the resources of leveraging the market center for the training and the coaching and things like that, rather
Right.
than carrying that expense. So there are plenty of ways to cut costs by doing that. And
Cool.
reducing the liability. If you're sharing it
Yeah,
with a
that's hard to
pool
do.
of so many agents
Yeah.
versus a smaller office,
Right.
it makes a lot of sense financially.
Cool.
That's how
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, because you think about some of the companies that offer that capping model, where for a broker and you're running a team, but you still have that overhead, whether somebody close or not. When you tie into a franchise, well, as a team, then you don't necessarily have that overhead, just whatever office fees you have.
And it's
Huge
interesting.
difference.
I think there are some independent brokers that maybe if they've been out there for quite some time, they're like, oh, I can have access to this technology or what have you.
Right.
Those prices on that technology is increasing at a pretty good clip.
Right.
Because there is a market for that. Whereas when you're in our world, it's so much more cost effective to be able to share our platform.
Right.
And not have to bring on those extra costs.
Okay, so I'm just curious as to, like where you're headed in like the next 5 years and then going into like retirement. How does a broker retire?
Yeah.
From your perspective.
Or even an agent retired.
Right. No, that's the whole idea, right? We want to fund our life, and at some point you want to be able to wake up every day and do whatever you feel like. So first of all, where we're heading, part of where I'm heading is actually where the entire industry is heading. And it's by design. Really, there is a whole movement within the industry of providing an end-to-end just whole experience for the for our clients, the user experience, that they have a one-stop shop. So we have relationships with title companies and lenders and insurance companies, and really finding ways to be in business with them and offer the premium service so that clients can come somewhere and get everything serviced. And the other idea is, versus thinking about real estate as a transactional business, really it's how are you in business for the life cycle with these clients. And that's really the language and the initiative we have when we're talking with our agents and our teams, is that continuous relationship. Because you don't know exactly when everyone is going to have a real estate need. So it's staying in relationship with them throughout that entire process and providing value regarding their real estate investments that entire time versus just at the point of buying or selling a home. So an example would be checking in with your clients and when's the last time they updated their insurance. Think about this. People that bought their homes a year ago are underinsured. What's their house worth now versus what kind of insurance did they get? Look at the cost of building a home now. And if they had to, is their replacement value up to date? So what great conversations that you're providing that value to your clients, saying, hey, have you talked to your insurance agent? So us having those relationships. So my job as an operating partner is making sure we're aligned with the right partners that can help us with that and bring a better service to our clients.
Right. So the agents and the brokerages having those relationships will allow you to invest in those other companies possibly and have some type of retirement income coming in, even if you're not working.
Correct.
Is that?
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, that's my personal goal, and also what I'm hoping to help pour into our agents and instill in our agents. Right. We look at Reggie, you're doing an awesome job leading an investment group like that. All of us should have multiple streams of income, and that's what we want to teach other people to do. Right. So. With that being said, that's another beauty of this business is you have the ability to kind of flex up and down based on your life needs and demands at that point in time. And so I think my family would laugh if I ever said, oh, I plan to retire on X date. They're like, yeah, right. No, I mean, I love it. I don't think of it as work. It's play. Will I maybe do less of it at some point? I don't have a hard target in my mind. Like on X date, I am done. I'm checked out.
I do.
I don't think realtors retire.
No, I think there are ways you can do things.
Yeah, I think either realtors don't retire because they don't want to or they can't. And those are usually the two reasons why.
Just like the athletes. You know what I mean? It's like when you lose your identity. That's what you've been doing the last 20 years of your life. So you just gonna stop.
Then you become a coach. You become a sportscaster. You know what I'm saying? So
this is a real thing. So my mother passed away. A lot of the people who spoke at the funeral were her friends in business, but since she was 18.
Wow. Yeah.
And I thought about it because at first I was like, man, everybody that's going to be talking is going to be talking about Bobby as a realtor. You know what I mean? But that was what she did.
Right.
You know, I mean, they talked about how good of a person she was, but at the same time, those are still all her friends and the people who've been around her the longest. So what was I going to do? But I think a lot of us live that life or whatever.
So, and it sounds like, too, what you're saying from the retirement standpoint for an agent is really pay attention to the other opportunities other than just going out selling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Investing in your insurance companies, your title companies, and things of that nature.
Yeah, create other streams of income, have rental properties.
Yep.
I mean, first and foremost, I mean, we coach and train our people. The first question you should ask on every listing appointment is, should I buy this house?
Right.
So you're walking in, if it's the right price, find a way. Go buy it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I think that was a really good conversation. Natalie, thank you for coming here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
All right. Do you have Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn? Where can people reach you?
Oh, yeah. I'm, yes and yes. I'm on Facebook. It's Natalie Peterlin Reed. My maiden name is Peterlin. It's not hyphenated. It's just Natalie Peterlin Reed.
Okay.
And I think I'm Natalie Reed 6 on Instagram.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay. Cool. All right.
I got to go find you. Well, that's a wrap. It was a good show.
All right.
Definitely.
Cool.